welcome. My little space on YouTube. My glasses will not stay. For those of you who have like subscribed and liked, you have made me so cool in my kids' eyes. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who have come back. If you're new here, you've not missed much because this is only episode 2. Are we calling these episodes? Hello, fiber friends, and welcome to this space, my little corner of YouTube where we chat about spinning and wool and knitting with our hand spun. Welcome back to those of you who've seen the very first episode. It is February. It is 81 degrees outside, so if you're in the northern hemisphere, in a place other than Florida, it's probably pretty chilly. But it is very warm. It's been really warm this week. Usually this is pretty warm for February. I mean, we may have a couple of 80-degree days, but it's usually fairly, 60s. I feel, right? I mean, I always say February is the coldest month, and it has been up until this year. Which my garden is hating, by the way, because all my cold-loving annuals are out there and they're like, what is this temperature? And we want to wither away and die in it. Anyways, I just want to say a huge thank you to those of you who subscribed and liked and commented and just reached out on Instagram. My son has been obsessed with YouTubers since he was very, very little, and he's always wanted to be like a YouTuber. It has been his life goal. He is 12 now. But they all thought I was crazy when I was like, I'm gonna do like a vlog and post it about like spinning, and they're like, no one's going to watch that. So thank you for helping me prove my children wrong and show them mom is cool to some people. But after I posted it and y'all started subscribing, I showed him and he was just like, Mom, this is insane. It's so cool. So it's been really fun. He'll check in, how many subscribers do you have now? So I'll look and I'll show him, and it's not a ton. But for those of you who have subscribed, just know you're making me very cool in my 12-year-old's eyes, which is kind of hard to do these days. Thank you. It's been fun, and y'all have been so kind and so great. And I hope that you have fun. Hopefully you have something cozy to drink and knitting or spinning, and we can just chat, because that's when I tend to watch podcasts, is when I'm knitting. It's something on. When I'm spinning, I always have something on. So hopefully you're doing one of those things, and if not, go grab it. Okay, so did I say my name? My name is Kristen. You can find me on Instagram as stitchedvintage. Anything you hear here or see here is of interest to you, you can find me on Instagram, and I probably share about it there too. And I share more in my stories than on my feed. I need to get better about sharing on my feed. All right, so I have a lot to talk about. I may break this up and do kind of chat about what I've been working on, and then do a bit more of a deep dive into some of the other stuff mid-month, or maybe kind of, I don't know how this is going to work. My goal is 12 videos, so 1 video a month, where we're talking about spinning and what I'm spinning and what I'm knitting with my hand spun and what I'm knitting with maybe not my hand spun, and just kind of a recap of what I've been working on for the month. But I'm finding I like to do a lot of things, and there's not enough time in one. I don't want these to get longer than an hour. I can get long-winded and talk for a while. We'll see where I'm at. I've also gotten quite a few questions So I don't know if I'll have time at the end. Maybe we'll do like, I brought my spinning wheel to like kind of get on it and spin and chat with you guys and maybe answer some questions. I don't know if we'll have time for that. Maybe we can do like a spin and chat video where I answer questions that you guys have asked like next week or in a couple weeks. I don't know. My kids are always home. We homeschool. We're also on the go like a lot. My oldest is in dance. So like finding quiet where like the kids aren't being super loud, and also a space. Like this is just like a corner of my bedroom. I don't have the space. Like I don't have a dedicated space in the house to like record from other than right here. Like our house is just one big open floor plan. So like I tried recording out there, like spinning, but there was so much echo and it's just too open. So I don't know. So thank you for bearing with me and being a part of just my chaos. If you could see around me, it is like all the things. All right, so where we left off last time, I had cast on and was working on the Seela sweater. So I chatted about that. That was for Casey at Young Folk Knits, her bougie sweatshirt knit along, which like I avoided and then couldn't avoid anymore. And that was the Seela sweater, and we finished it, and I've been wearing it literally every day. I love it so much. It is so cozy and squishy and stretchy and just the perfect, just throw it on sweatshirt. Like, I love it. So I chatted last time about the yarn. So this is hand spun, and it is very different from the yarn that the pattern calls for. So I believe that yarn in the pattern is like a brushed alpaca. So I think that's like a silk core with the alpaca like floof. Very different fabric, very different sweater in general. But I saw that and I was like, I want that sweater, but like cozy. So I had this yarn already spun up from a fleece that I partially processed, and I figured out the grist, and my grist was very similar to the alpaca. Okay, so this is the yarn. CVM Cormo. So stretchy and bouncy. So I had spun the singles very fine. These singles are very, very fine. And it's only a 2-ply, but once it was plied and finished, it just bounced back and floofed up. My grist was very similar to the grist of the alpaca, like how many yards you get to how much it weighs. Grist is important. I find for me personally in knitting with my hand spun, grist matters more than wraps per inch. You can have a yarn that is, let's say 20 wraps per inch, and this yarn is 20 wraps per inch. But if the grist is very different, then they're going to knit completely different. And that's the same to say if you have a finished yarn that's 12 wraps per inch and a finished yarn that's 20 wraps per inch, and the grist is the same, they will knit, like your fabric knit will be pretty much the same fabric, right? Grist matters. I avoided grist for a while when I first started spinning, and I don't think it's very important at, like, if you're just starting, it is not something you really have to have a grasp of. Like, spin yarn that you like, right? Keep it fun. And then as you go and you're wanting to kind of grow in your learning, that's when I don't really think grist was really important to me until I really started like spinning for like sweaters and garments. And I had done so beforehand. Like I didn't pay attention to grist when I knit my, or spun for and then knit my illuminate. Like grist wasn't even something I was thinking about. But when we're replicating like commercial yarns with our hand spun and trying to make a yarn for a pattern and like make that yarn that's in the pattern, grist can help, like understanding grist and your grist of your yarn, or finding a pattern for your yarn, like, and it helps. That's all I'm saying. I didn't make any like modifications or changes other than I think I went up a size because my swatch gauge, I was a bit off on my stitch count, so I didn't want to change my needles. I liked like the fabric I was getting, and so I think I went up one size. I talked about it last episode. Either went up a size or down a size. I don't think I went down a size. But we've got lots of positive ease. I'll throw it on super fast. I have something tied around my waist. And dog hair all over it. But I know it's 82 degrees here in Florida, so I will start sweating immediately. But it is cozy. Okay, let's see if I can maneuver myself to show. I think it's on the right way. Does anyone else struggle with knowing? I love the folded collar, but it just sits really nice. And when I have jeans on, like, you can kind of just like tuck that front in a little bit. I do kind of wish I did another decrease row before I started the ribbing to kind of tighten that up, because it's like the ribbing's not very tight. But it's fine because I can just kind of tuck it in and it's super cute. So you can see it's very kind of like tweedy with like the neps, and it's kind of like a rustic yarn. It doesn't feel rustic, but it's got a rustic look to it, which I don't mind. I know some people don't like that. I knew that going into this, like this yarn was a very rustic looking yarn. So I figured I'd kind of talk about why this yarn is like that. I'm sure these will eventually turn into pills. I don't know. Maybe right now they're just like little like tweedy bits. Okay, I'm starting to get warm. So super quick. I don't know. I should do a whole different recording on fleece, I feel, because that is why I processed this. This is Sapphire's fleece. So I did finish washing the rest of Sapphire's fleece. So you can see we've got some bleach tips. This is a lamb's fleece. I believe this was a lamb's fleece. I'm pretty much sure it was. It's very tippy. So lots of second cuts in this fleece, which for a hand spinner can be very annoying. And it's tippy, which means those tips are very brittle and they break off. Normally I go lock by lock and I use my lock pop. And I do the butt end and I do the tip end, and it takes off like any things I don't want in my like final prep for spinning. So like any second cuts, VM, like that gets trapped in the lock pop. And then any tips that are maybe brittle or not sound, they break off in that too. And then that can be used. I use that in my garden around my dahlias. It keeps the slugs and bugs off my dahlias, and it works really well, like any waste from prepping fiber. So this, I don't know why, but it's very clean. That is one thing. There's like no vegetable matter in this whatsoever. So that is a plus. However, with the second cuts and the tips that are just so brittle, It's just not the most sound. I put it through my carder as is. What? I never do that. But I did. And what that created was these tips would break off and ping back and break, and the second cuts would get all like neppy, and it just created a neppy, beautiful, but neppy, and maybe not the most smooth, nice yarn that I could have. The rest of this fleece, I will go through lock by lock in the lock pop and get it nice and perfect. But for this, just cozy, throw on and just be cozy, it's fine. And we'll see. We'll see how it pills and cleans up. Like I can use a pill remover and just see. And I will keep you updated. Maybe later on in the year we can do an update. So that is why this looks like a very rustic, almost tweedy type knit. All right. So that is finished object number 1. My other finished object that I have is I finished 1, 2, 3 washing 1, 2, 3 fleeces. And where'd that come from? The rest is Sapphire's fleece. Finished Cookie's fleece. I finished Eris's fleece. I don't know if I'm saying his little sheepy name right. He's a Romney lamb. He's all washed up. This is, let's see. Here's some locks from Eris. He's a Romney lamb. Let's just pull you out. Oh, come on. So pretty. Come on. The crimp. I don't know if you can see it. So it's really pretty. It's going to make a really beautiful drapey yarn or knit. This is the sample that I spun. I shared this last time too, I think. So we finished that. We finished Cookie's fleece. I still have to do Loki. Loki is a Shetland Finn cross. Cookie is a Shetland lamb. Romney lamb. CVM Cormo cross. So I still have to do Loki's. And I did an Icelandic lamb fleece, which I'm going to save for later because I have a lot of thoughts. My other finished object is this yarn. It was all nice, but I undid it and now it's not. So this, I've been spinning forever. I keep taking it off and working on other things, but I was like, I have to finish this. So this is a merino. It's 21 microns. It's created by Elsie B in her pink blush. Isn't that so pretty? I love it. And we have 307 meters here. I do meters because almost all patterns have meters and yardage, but my yarn counter that I feed my yarn through as I cake it up or skein it up, it measures meters. So that's just easy for me to just write that number down. This was prior to washing. I'm sure I lost a bit of length after washing because this really kind of floofed up. But I'd say at least, I don't think I lost a ton. I'll let you know when. I don't reskein my yarns because I don't have time to just sit and skein and skein and skein. So we finished that, and that is a contrast color for what will eventually be my satellite shawl. So I have contrast colors for that, and this is the only one that's done. Finished yarns also, we have, these are Spindle spun yarns. I feel like it's easier to show when it's like this. This is, what is this? Horned Dorset. Spun on the support spindles. I have quite a bit of this. It's not the best prep. Mill prepped, it's not commercial. Like, it came from a small mill. I spun this over the fold, and we have 30 grams, and it's 73 meters is what we wound up with. I have quite a bit. This is the Horned Dorset. What do we have here? This is Florida Cracker. This spins up beautifully. This is from my local mill. So we have a mill that's literally almost in our backyard. He's really amazing. He gets some really amazing fleece in there. But okay, so we have 40 grams and 137 meters is what we wound up here. And I believe I have more of this. Yeah. Crinkle. This is the Florida Cracker. Pioneer Fiber Mill is, let me make sure. Yeah, this is where it came from. It doesn't say the name, but I recognize his little tags. But it's pretty, like, thin roving. It drafts beautifully. It's a really great prep. I prefer, like, my own prep, you know, straight off the drum carder. But this is really nice. Okay, so I have obviously more of that to spin. And we'll see. I'll probably dye these, maybe. I don't know. I've got a lot of dye, but I've never dyed yarn. Maybe I'll send them to one of my friend dyers. Okay, and then this is Cheviot that I spun on the spindles. And we spun this over the fold, 57 grams and 133 meters is what we wound up with. This spun on it, I have to say, I would like a Cheviot fleece to hand process and see. It reminds me of like the down wools is what it reminds me of. It's not super soft, but it's not itchy. I can't handle itch. Like, if something's gonna itch someone, it's gonna itch me. And it's just right here. It just, like, from here to here, like this square right here. And it's just the everywhere else, like arms, right here, like everywhere else is fine. It's just right here. If it's gonna itch me, it's gonna itch me, and I can't handle it. And this doesn't, it's squishy and it's nice. Okay, so those are my finished objects. Okay, I'm gonna try and quickly, I may do a separate recording on this Icelandic fleece. So I sampled a bit of different things. Let me go grab something actually really fast. The Icelandic fleece. Y'all, I'm trying to love this Icelandic fleece, but I can't do itch. So in episode 1, I talked about my Illuminate sweater and how I had a CVM mohair. I misspoke. I kept calling it something it wasn't, which is frustrating after the fact. But it was a blend of CVM and mohair. I can't remember. I think it was 80-20. I can't remember. But this is it, spindle spun, and it itches. Nowhere else, just right here. And I've tried to wear that sweater. I've worn it a few times. If it's really, really cold, you don't, and I imagine like the loopy like sweaters, you know, where they come from, like it's cold. So the colder you are, like you're not thinking about that itch. but it has to be really, really cold for that itch to not bother me. And it just doesn't get that cold here in Florida. So I can't wear it. I mean, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and every time I go to put it on, I'm like, nope, and it comes right off. So I am pulling that out, keeping my contrast color. I'm going to reknit it, but I have to find what I'm going to spin for the main color. All that being said, mohair itches me, even alpaca, I think. Now, next time I'm at the yarn shop, I'll grab a skein of their alpaca and hold it and see. But I've got some alpaca fiber here. And while it's not as pokey as mohair, I feel some poke. I may be able to handle it, but I do feel some. Not as much, but I do. So that being said, you can probably imagine me saying Icelandic is pretty pokey for me. I don't want to say itchy because it's not like I don't itch. It's just like something's poking me. Like, get it off, get it off, get it off, you know? And I don't want to waste my time. Well, it wouldn't be a waste of time because I can make things with it. Mittens, it wouldn't bother my hands. You know, it doesn't bother, like stuff like that doesn't bother my hands. Socks, I can wear super itchy, like I've spun and knit like itchy wool. No problems on the feet. So I can do that. I just can't do a sweater, which for me, when I'm spinning, and I spin for socks and other hats and all the things, but my main in my head is sweaters. We're making sweaters. I don't know why. So I have quite a few samples. I tried it lots of different ways. So we did a lopey style, which just means it's the tog and the thell. So this is the fleece, and Icelandic wool fleece has two parts. It has a tog and a thell. A lock here. Maybe it will show you. So you can see like this tip is pretty thin, and up here by the butt end is thick. And that's because this is the outer coat, this long piece, and then you have, that's the tog, and then you have the thell, so that pulls out very easily. Very easy when it's washed, not as easy when it's not. These are thicker bits, part of the outer coat. And then we are left with very fine, short fibers. And this is the thell. This is very like downy, soft. I did a post on Instagram kind of sharing my thoughts on this, if you're interested to read them. But the gist of it is I found, well, a snippet is I found the thell of this lamb's fleece reminded me a lot of cotton. The feel of it. Those are outer parts. So it's itchy, which, I mean, those lopey yarns are known, like people say, like they're itchy, right? No news here that Icelandic wool is itchy a bit. So I use my hand cards. I tried my drum carder. My drum carder is 72 tines per inch, which works for me for my fleece that I prefer. For this, because that thell is so fine and so short, my carder was not having it. So I pulled out my hand cards, my cotton hand cards, which are 120 tines per inch, and those worked great for blending the tog and the thell together to then spin a single. So I did, wait, I just had it. I've got too much stuff. So I spin these on the wheel, very thin. I would not knit anything with this because it's like lace. Wait. Too much twist also. I'm not good at, something I want to work on this year is getting better at spinning singles. I always put too much twist in it, which is kind of odd because I'm a slow treadler and I draft fast. So my wheel is not made for spinning a singles, I don't think. But so I did this very thin, a lot of twists. So then I was like, well, let's try the support spindles. Because support spindles, I get a much lower twist, much just fluffier yarn. So we did get a bit thicker, right? This is it. Spindle spin singles, yes. So we got a bit thicker. But y'all, there's no way I could do a sweater with this. Which would be so nice because it'd be so much easier to process and spin this fleece if I could, which I have an idea. So I'm going to share. I've got two ideas for this, and then I need y'all's input. Okay, so we did that. What is this one? Okay, and then we did a 2-ply Lopey style, so both the tog and the felt, and we did the 2-ply. Not a fan. If I was going to do the tog and the felt together, I would be doing a singles. So not a fan of the 2-ply. And then we did, what is this? Okay. Then we separated the tog and the felt, and we did a 2-ply. This is the 2-ply tog. This is a 2-ply felt. Let's see, let's put them so you can see. Let's see, can you see the difference? Tog, felt, outer, inner. See the difference? So I did like this 2-ply felt, and it's soft. There are a few, and when I actually figure out what I'm doing, and if I go this route, I will process it a bit better. But I do see like the hairs, like the outer coat. There's some outer coat in here, which those would just kind of work themselves out, like as you knit it and wear it and wash it and pick at it while you're wearing it, right? But this is soft. I can wear this here and not be itchy. I also did the tog, as singles. And for this, I tried cutting the tips to see if that would make a difference. So they say like with long wools, like they can tend to be a bit pokey, right? The long wools. So I forget who shared it. Who knows? It's probably not just one person, but they say if you cut the tips, like it's the tips that are poking you. And if you cut them, then you have no more pokies. So I thought, let's try it. No, this is the micron count. This is still poking me with no tips. So all the singles I fold a bit, just to lock in that integrity of the singles. And then we did the Lopey. I did Lopey. I cut the tips and then carded the tog and then felled together, and we did that, and it's still, I would say, if I did a Lopey, it would be, my prep would be a worsted prep and worsted spun, really smoothed, to kind of get all those like hair-like fibers trapped and like not poking out, because it's and you can you can kind of, I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, or you can see like those little hair-like fibers poking out, but that's what's poking. So all that to say, after I played a bit with this and then wrote up that Instagram post, the felt reminds me of cotton. I was like, what if I blended, stay up glasses, what if I blended the felt with cotton and made a 50-50 yarn. So I sampled. You guys, I love it. So this is the sample. And it's so soft. So the thing is, I live in Florida and it is warm. I mean, it's February 9th and it's 82 degrees outside. Our low is only 57. So while I love the cozy sweaters and wool, finding things that like I can actually wear, you know, when you go to the local yarn shop, there's a lot of, well, there's a lot of superwash. So superwash is not as warm as non-superwash. So you'll find a lot of you'll find a lot of superwash. You'll find a lot of wools mixed with plant fibers, because it's so warm here. And well, I want to knit with handspun, so I have to find a way to like mix, right? So creating yarns that maybe aren't as warm. So I really want to knit some camisoles. I have a few in mind, and while I do have some commercial yarns that I can take from my stash, and I have pulled out to maybe make some, I would really like to hand spin. I would like to knit with hand spun. So I think that this would be great. So this is my thought, is separating the entire fleece, tog and thell, taking the thell, making a 50-50 thell cotton blend, wool cotton blend, and making a cute like flowy knit tank for Florida. That's option one. Option two would be to do on the spindles a lopey style single, very low twist, fold. And if I do a sweater, then I would do something like Andrea Mowry's Alpenglow sweater, if you've seen it. So she's got like the neck that's like one yarn and then another yarn, and then you go into like the main color and there's like color work and all of the things. So my thought is, it's this area that bothers me. Even on my Illuminate with the mohair, it's fine everywhere else. Arms, like I'm not pulling it away, like it's just right here. So my thought is I could do either that sweater or modify a different sweater to have, you know, if I, you know, this, let's say this and this, and I dyed them together like with my dye, so they're the same color, maybe a little different because they're going to take the color differently. But I can have the soft like neck area and then use the lopey to knit the actual body of the sweater. I'm thinking we're going to do the 50-50. I'm thinking we're going to do the 50-50 because I just think it would be really neat to have an Icelandic cotton blend. I don't really think you can find those like commercially. So that's all my talk I have on Icelandic. If you have any tips or you think I'm crazy for doing the 50-50 or you have other ideas, maybe what I can blend the tog with, or maybe I don't know. So in separating the fleece, I would keep the tog and it would probably go like deep stash. I probably want to be pulling that out for a while. And eventually when I get into weaving, because I do have plans to get into weaving, not now, not anytime soon, further down the road, couple years into the future. And when I do, I will have the tog to then spin a singles, full it, use that as a warp for maybe like a table runner or placemats or something. That's what I'm thinking. What would you do? Okay, so that's all I've finished. Now, I have cast on. So I've got 2 whips. one I've not worked on. It's the Birch Creek Bandana that is out of handspun fleece. And the second is actually something I'm kind of enjoying knitting, which I wasn't sure I would. We chatted about it last time. So this is Spincycle. Deep Bump is the main color. I don't remember. This is like Meadow something, and then something Poison or Poison something. And then I haven't gotten to the fourth color, well, third contrast color. I wasn't sure if I was going to love it because of all the yellow. I'm not a huge fan of yellow, but it's yellow and blue, and we all know what yellow and blue makes. It makes green. So that optical mixing is happening where it looks very green, which I do like. Green is my favorite color. Well, black is my favorite color, but green is my second favorite color. I'm liking it. I'm enjoying knitting. I'm just like, wait, I want to see the next color. So, which I get because I've spun with like, or I've knit with hand spun, like from dyed braids. Very similar. I just want to say, like, if you're worried, if you've never knit with Spincycle and you have hand spun and you're worried about knitting with your hand spun, this solidified for me because, y'all, my hand spun is more consistent than this Spincycle. Not all of it, but most of it. So just know that, like, this yarn is a pretty penny. It's why I'm knitting it. I had bought it. Had been in my stash for like 2 years. It's like, that's a lot of money. I have to do something or I need to just get rid of it. So I'm knitting with it. And I mean, there's places where it's so tightly twisted, and then other places in that skein where it's like barely twisted. There's spots where it's almost like cobweb thin. And then there's spots where it's like almost like a DK. Like it is just, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing or like saying that it's bad or you can't, like, that's not where I'm going with it. I'm just going with, like, people knit, like, buy this. This is not hand spun. This is mill spun. And while I know, like, it's created this way because they were when they started, they were hand spinners and they've made yarn to mimic that. Like, they're having machines mimic what we do. Like, our inconsistent yarns, they're now like mimicking with machines. So knit with your hand spun is my main takeaway. And I hope your main takeaway from this whole vlogging journey. I'm liking it. I'm petite. It runs in my family. My mom's very tiny. My biological father was very tiny. Well, very tall, but very tiny. So I am knitting the smallest size, and I did not do a gauge swatch. I just didn't. I didn't want to. And I was like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if not, it's not. I think it's going to be big. So I went with the smallest size because that would give me like 0 to like -1 ease. And I'm not thinking it's going to be very tight. I'm hoping it is because she said the fit is better when it is a bit snug. So, I don't know. I'm a very petite person. I have like a negative bust. So, and Andrea's kind of busty. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to kind of knit down a bit and, try it on. I tried it on before I split for the sleeves just to make sure, because I need a deeper yoke. I found the Seela kind of confirmed that. I like my armpit hole, whatever, to be down further. I feel like I'm like long. I've got a long torso and long legs and long arms and like wide shoulders. Like, I'm slender, but my proportions are very not normal, not average. My proportions are very weird, which makes knitting for myself nice because I can make things fit. I'm just hoping it fits. If it's a bit oversized, I think it'll be fine. We'll see. So this is my cast on. I've not made any progress on my Birch Creek Bandana, which is totally fine because my girl Tashi over at Tangles in Starlight on Instagram, Stitches in Starlight on YouTube is hosting a knit along, yay Tashi, with Casey over at Young Folk Knits, who I absolutely adore, and also who started spinning. I'm so excited. They're doing a knit along. Oh, Tashi, what is it? Warm necks, warm hearts or something, knit along. Basically like knitting something to keep your neck warm is the gist of it. And whips count. I'm not like entering to win anything. Side note, I always feel weird about knit alongs because like most of the time prizes for knit alongs are yarn. And while I don't knit with non-hand spun yarn, so I don't want to like enter and take something from someone. So like I secretly join knit alongs. Like I'm like lurking, seeing what everyone else is doing and like joining in on my own, but I'm not entering. Am I alone in that? Do y'all do that? Like join knit alongs as like the lurker, but like you're also doing it too. Am I making sense? Anyways, so she's doing that. So I'm going to shifty. I'm going to shift from the shifty to the Birch Creek Bandana when that knit along starts. Because I've not touched that since before the last episode. So hopefully that'll be done too. I'm hoping to get both of these done by next month. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a pipe dream. All right, moving on quickly. What else did I want to talk about? I talked about all my yarns. I talked about that. Okay, on the wheel on the spindles. So this is on my wheel. Not actually on my wheel because I was sampling on my wheel. So I have 3 bobbins. 3 of these bobbins. Oh, come on. It's not wanting to focus. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to do something else. I just pop it off and put it with the fiber and pop a new bobbin on. So I can have 3 projects going. That is how I do it. When this is done, I will rewind. I will use my bobbin winder to wind this onto storage bobbins and then do the next. Actually, that's a lie. This I will spin and then I will take like a random white fiber, connect it, spin a bit, and then finish the rest of the 4 ounces on this bobbin is what I will do with this. And then rewind onto 2 separate bobbins and then we apply. So I can have 3 projects going on this with my 3 bobbins. And then I have my storage bobbins if I really need a bobbin for something. So, I'm getting distracted because I'm trying to hurry because this is getting long. So this is a Rambouillet. It is also created by Elsie. This is, I'll have to put the color name. So these are singles that we're spinning. Rambouillet is not my favorite to spin, just putting that out there. I love the finished yarn. It's just this, I don't mind Rambouillet. I would really love a Rambouillet fleece just to see what it's like really like. This prep is not my favorite. There's tons of, like there's short, there's long, like the staple lengths are just very not the same. So it just makes spinning a bit more difficult. It's a finer fleece. Drafting is hard because if you have the same staple length, you're drafting like the same amount, but then you get a shorter bit. And so then you're like, oh, that was too much. And it makes it a bit more difficult. That is all. So we are spinning this. These will go together. So this is another contrast color for the satellite. So I think in Andrea's, she had like a light pink, a dark pink, a yellow. And I think the main color was like a cream or maybe like a grayish. I can't remember. But I do have another yellow, another tonal created by Elsie. And those will be the satellite shawl. Someday, one day, probably not anytime soon. So I've got that. And then on my spindles, I have some Santa Cruz. So this is from the Spindle shop. It's either out of Australia or New Zealand. Why am I drawing a blank? If I could only own one spindle, this would be it. And I'm not even sorry for saying that. It is not wanting to pick up because I'm losing light, but it is amazing. It's my favorite spindle, my most grabbed, my most like wanted spindle. So check him out if you haven't. And I am sampling some Santa Cruz on here. I have about 16 ounces. It's a really beautiful prep. It's from a mill, so it's mill prepped. It's really nice. It drafts really nice. It's making very beautiful singles. And we'll see. I'm going to sample this. I'm going to ply it up, 2-ply, 3-ply, just kind of see what I'm getting from the spindle and decide if I'm going to spin. It's either 16, 20, maybe 24. I can't remember. 16 to 20 ounces I have. Do I have 4 ounce? Either 3 or 4 bags of 4 ounce. Anyways, so we're just sampling. I'm gonna ply this up and see, and if I like that yarn that I get, then we will spin. I will spend. That will kind of be my go-to spindling project for probably the next few months. And then I carded up some in Cookies Fleece. I spun that on the wheel, but I just wanted to see what it'll look like on the spindle. So I'm just playing with that. Literally like 2 minutes. I was like, oh, the kids called me or needed something. And I think we made it through. Did we make it through everything or almost? Oh, I didn't. So I did want to show you one thing. It's an acquisition. And I know we said we're not going to do acquisitions. And we're not. But I got a new spindle. Look at how beautiful is this spindle. And where did it go? Oh no, I'm in a mess. Oh, right in front of me. And then look, little glass spinning bowl. So this has now become my favorite glass, or my favorite spinning bowl. Absolute favorite. I've tried all my spindles. I love it. It's very pretty. Mingo and Asho. Asho, Mingo and Asho. Am I saying that right? I'm totally bombing that. I bomb everything. So this was worth the purchase for me. The spindle's heavy, which I knew buying it. It's a bit heavy for my taste. I can go into spindles and my preferences and the differences and kind of do a deep dive into spindles if y'all want. My sweet spot is about 22 to 28 gram support spindle. That's what I like. I don't really have a preference for like the style. It's just that weight. I find weight matters over the style of the spindle. The heavier it is, it's like weight. So if you have a 2-pound weight and a 5-pound weight, like 2, 5, and you're going like, you know, up and down, like which one's going to get tired faster? The 5-pound it's more. It's the same with these. The heavier they are, the harder you have to flick, the more energy you have to put into flicking it. And my hand gets tired faster. And, but it's a beautiful spindle. It spins beautifully. And I'm going to play with it a bit longer. I spun half that Cheviot on this. So we're going to continue playing. And that's it. I do not have time to spin and answer questions because I have to take my daughter to dance. But I will try and record that sometime in the next week and get that posted. If you have questions to add, let me know. I'm trying to think real quick off the top of my head. It was spinning for projects, mainly sweaters, was one that I was asked over and over. Replicating yarn, how to like, which is kind of the same, I feel, as like spinning for a sweater. Well, no, they're different. Fleece. I had questions about fleece. So anyways, I'll compile that, and if you have questions, there's a Google form where you can like post it anonymously. I'll put that link in the description. You can just comment here. You can message me on Instagram. Maybe I'll throw up like a question box or something before I record that. And we will talk more about that on a different day because I have to go. The last thing I wanted to say was, if you're a new spinner, welcome to this journey. Spinners, like if you think knitters are awesome, like spinners are way better. I'm just kidding. I know a lot of you probably aren't spinners. But we get very excited for new spinners because there's so much joy in spinning and not many people do it. And so when you find someone else that spins, it's like, it's fun. Like you have, like there's so much to talk about and there's so many questions and so many different things, and it's just really fun. So yay, I'm super excited for you. And if you don't already, my number one recommendation for books, there's tons of like, not tons, because compared to like knitting and other crafts, there's not, but there's quite a few books out there. My number one recommendation would be the Fleece and Fiber Source Book. So this is, you get yarn characteristics, like how, like the best ways to prep it, the best ways to spin it. Does it like worsted? Does it like woolen? What the yarn like looks like, you know, like just so you can get an idea of what to do, right? So I'm assuming you already have that. The next book I would recommend is this one. And I like this because as you can see, it is all white yarn. So like you're really, like you can see, there's just something about it. Like you can't really tell the difference. If you're looking at all these different colors and you're seeing all this, like you can't, well, what's the difference there? And when everything's white, you're like, oh, that's the difference, because you're seeing this yarn and they are the same exact yarn except for they're not, right? So I do. There's a lot. It also comes with like reference cards as you're spinning. So like those, like I haven't used them, but like you can like cut them or fold, and there's 4 to a page. And there's a lot of like basics, like hand cards versus combing, worsted versus woolen prep, drafting, consistency. Like she does a really good job explaining it. And these two are my most grabbed. These two are my most grabbed. And then you can't get this book anymore. But Rachel, if you don't follow Rachel Smith, you should. She podcasts like every 2 weeks. She wrote this book with Katrina Stewart, and it's all about, it's called Unbraided because as you can see, they are braid, dyed, basically comb top. And like she talks you through like color. And this is a whole nother topic. But like you can see, I don't want to like give away too much, but like she goes, this is all the same braid spun differently. Well, plied differently. So you got it. This is what that braid looks like as a traditional 2-ply. Same braid as a center pole 2-ply. A traditional 3-ply versus a chain ply versus a fractal 3-ply versus a fractal 2-ply. And like all of those decisions change your yarn. It's so good. It really, you know, so many people in spinning talk about fractal spins, and it's like really popular. It was popular when I started. It's still super popular. And I hate them. And And like, I didn't understand why. I just shouldn't say I hate them. I enjoy spinning them. I don't like the color. Like when I knitted with it, it's like, I don't. And it wasn't until looking through this book and seeing all these different braids and all the different ways you can spin them and ply them and seeing, like, I know what I like. And I want a Spincycle type yarn. Very long color repeat. I like traditional. If I'm going to spin, I'm going to spin top to bottom, like split it into 2 or 3, pre-draft it out, attenuate it. Everyone has their opinions on that, and that's fine. Because I want those long color repeats. And especially because most of my braids, the dye, you know, if I've only got 3 like sections of dye, I'm going to strip it down, then attenuate it like more, you know, maybe do like 5 strips for each bobbin. So I can get more of a color repeating. Anyways, I find to get the most from a dyed braid, to get that Spincycle like color repeat, it is spinning end to end, which is what Spincycle does. They dye that braid, or they dye that top, and then they put it through a pin drafter. And that is what you're doing when you're pre-drafting, attenuating the fiber, and you're acting like the pin drafter, and you're stretching those colorways out nice and long. That's my personal opinion. The point in spinning is to spin what you like. What I like may not be what you like. What someone else does may not be. There is no right and wrong to, it is what you like, just like with the knitting, right? You may like hot pink sweaters. I don't wear hot pink sweaters. Like, I wear gray and black and white, and like earth tones. There's nothing wrong with any of that. And I like a traditional like 2-ply or 3-ply, like in color work, in something that I'm knitting. And that's my preference. And I only learned that from spinning the things, trying things out, and then really honing it in from this book and just understanding, you know, stripping the fiber, pre-attenuating, like doing all of these different things, how it affects the final yarn that is then knit. And you'll never know if you don't knit with your hand spun. You'll never be able to see what is this yarn that I'm creating if you're not knitting with it. So those are my tips. Only other thing is, you know, there's a lot of people that say you can't do this in spinning, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. The only thing I say you shouldn't do is thwack your yarn. We snap, we don't thwack, unless you're like really fulling and wanting to felt a yarn. But thwacking, you're smoothing things, you want things nice and soft. When you start thwacking it, you're letting those fibers start poking out, and that's where we get the itchiness. So the only thing we don't do is we don't thwack our yarn unless we're wanting to really felt, like a felted single type yarn. There's no right and wrong. Thick and thin is fine, as long as you're creating yarn you want. Yarn you want to knit with is what you should be creating. And that's going to be different for everyone. But didn't get to spin on the wheel this time, but we can spin and answer questions. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm still learning, but we can continue learning together. And until next time. Oh, do all those YouTube things. And I will see you next time.